Hello and welcome again to Conversations with Dr. Westman. Today is episode 11, and we're going to be chatting today about do calories matter? Are you, Eric?
Good. How are you, Glenn?
Fantastic, fantastic. So what I wanted to chat about is that most people that want to lose weight or embark on some sort of an eating plan that typically reduces calories. All the diets that we see today restrict calories in one form or another. So the question is, do calories matter?
Well, yeah, and as a kind of big picture question, this one has caused a lot of confusion. And I think it's because yes and no is the answer. So it's a confusing answer. Hopefully we can unpack that a little bit. So years ago, there were books on the bookshelf for weight loss called Calories Don't Matter. And they caused big furor because in the mainstream world, all we would do is help people count calories to reduce what they eat, the energy intake, and then that would be the weight loss plan. Well, these low carb doctors knew that if you just reduce carbohydrates without counting calories, it worked as well. So that, getting a new book or media, having controversy makes it, more likely to be sold or purchased. So that's where the calories don't matter kind of thing came out. At the end of the day, the real answer is you don't have to count them on a low carb diet because the hunger goes down and you eat less calories automatically. So a low carb diet becomes a low calorie diet without counting calories. Or did I just make it even more confusing?
No, I think that pretty much does make sense. And I think one of the hallmarks of a low carb or keto type of lifestyle, and certainly the program that you advocate, is that the people don't actually have to count the calories. It's a huge undertaking to have to, a lot of people have made a business out of building apps and having all these different profiles on their phones and counting the calories and counting the energy that they're expending on a daily basis. I mean, they definitely can work for certain diets, but the beauty of what you advocate is that you don't have to count the calories, which is quite liberating, I feel.
Yeah, well, and it caused controversy at first. The medical doctors who were using these diets in published books based on them, it was to the point where there was disbelief that they even worked, even though these medical doctors had clinics and I visited them and clearly it was working. The idea that you had to count calories, if you have this insulin resistance, carbohydrate intolerance, you've been heavy all your life, you have prediabetes, diabetes, that's going to leave you with hunger if you have a low calorie diet prepared for you. So a lot of people will try Weight Watchers or some other calorie restricted sort of program and they get hungry, and it doesn't have to be that way. So if you've tried other things, you have hunger, try a low carb keto approach, especially if you've had that history. But it becomes a low calorie diet. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to be burning the fat off your body, you have to be ingesting less energy than you're using for the day. This is just science. I mean, it's like gravity. This is the reality. How you accomplish that, it can be done in many different ways. I could give you a pill to make your hunger go away so you eat less. I could give you products that you purchase. There are some programs that doctors have from $500 to $1,000 a month, and all you do is drink those shakes, and the hunger goes away, the calories go down. You could even go for weight loss surgery where they make your stomach as big as a hen's egg and you just can't eat. And that will reduce the energy or caloric intake and lead to your body's burning its own fat as well. So I try to explain things more in terms of how do we get access to your fat energy store, and the harsh reality is that exercise is not a big help in any of this. The diet is much more important. In fact, I've helped people lose weight without exercising at all. And a lot of people are kind of surprised or can't believe that, but that's just how it works. So it's not that low-calorie diets can't work. They can, but they're not for everyone. And the hunger remaining for a lot of people will be going on a low-carb diet. The calories do matter. I mean, so the advanced course that actually led to Dr. Richard Feynman, a biochemist at the State University of New York, downstate in Brooklyn, wrote some papers about how there's a metabolic advantage. Dr. Atkins used to talk about a metabolic advantage and how calories behave differently in the body. Even Gary Taubes wrote articles and books about how calories don't matter, or that there's a metabolic advantage. Well, there is now, finally, after, gosh, I think the paper was 2016, that David Ludwig at Harvard did some metabolic ward studies that actually show low-carb diets do have a metabolic advantage. So that if you just count calories, the adding doesn't come out right. The addition, it doesn't come out right. So, but that metabolic advantage is rather small. And the way a low-carb diet leads to weight loss is that you eat less. I mean, it's obvious. Your hunger goes down, you eat less. But I would say the standing on the bully pulpit saying that calories don't matter and a calorie outside the body is not the same as how the calorie is burned inside the body. And that's the main point, is that yes, a calorie is a calorie outside the body, but a sugar bomb like an apple or banana is handled differently than the same amount of calories that come in a hamburger or steak inside. And that's because of the hormonal response. I mean, that's a deep dive into, suffice it to say that it's just handled differently. But yeah, so calories do matter.
So even though it's handled differently, something that's pretty interesting is because, or that I find in our circles, is that there's so much misinformation out there. There's so many videos where people advocate eating unlimited fats. Bearing in mind that out of the 3 macronutrients, fat has the highest caloric value. So I know that you've seen these videos and this information out there, but you put a limit on the amount of fat that people have, or you could look at it a different way. You don't put a limit on the amount because they can tap into their own body fat stores. So maybe you want to explain that.
Yeah, that's where the individual variability, the personalization of the program comes in. It's personalized. There are some people who automatically can just reduce what they eat. They don't overconsume cream and oils and butter. And those folks, you don't really have to say much other than just eat when you're hungry. Don't eat if you're not hungry. Don't eat past fullness. And so, but there are a subset of people, especially, if you've had weight loss surgery, if you've had a lifelong history of dieting on low-calorie diets, then a lot of these signals are messed up. And then the consumption of cream and oils and butter and this new concept of adding coffee, adding oils and MCT to butter, this can get out of control. And yeah, the reason fat is strictly limited on a low-fat diet is that it is the highest caloric source of the things we can eat and drink. So that's why in our program, we do strictly limit the amount of high-calorie, low-carb items. So there's a limit to not only the butter, the cream, also to the cheese. And so the program that we studied and developed over time has to work. I mean, so we've tried to fix those little things that can be a problem. So let me put it another way. If someone comes to me, it's not automatically working, I do a screen for, are they having too much cheese? Are they putting too much cream? Well, I just put a little cream in my coffee, but how many servings of coffee do you have a day? So if you're having 10 cups of coffee with a little bit of cream in each one, that can add up to a lot of calories. So yes, actually our system incorporates a caloric limit on the foods and drinks that are very high in calories, then that can lead to overconsumption of calories, and it doesn't work for weight loss. But that's where the personalization comes in. I mean, what are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to lose your body fat, using it for weight loss and obesity, diabetes treatment, then you want to be very careful about the amount of calories, the energy intake, and but for most people, it's a system where you don't have to be mindful or count calories at all.
Yeah.
We don't use apps, and I mean, you can do that, and you can write down things and follow macros and percentages, and that for most of my patients, that's just too difficult. They're not going to do that, and it's not necessary. So I find I'm simplifying things for people these days, and just don't even worry about the calories. Eat till you're full, and the low carb keto diet will do the work for you.
So something that was very fundamental for me, and I found it extremely interesting when I got into this. Obviously, that I came into this as an athlete, and so as an athlete and a carb burner, you would typically have between 1,500 and 2,000 calories of glycogen stores on your body at any given time, which if I was doing a race would equate, let's say a very hard race, that would equate to anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours before the glycogen stores would be depleted in the muscles. Conversely, now if you are fat adapted, even the most lean of athletes would have between 40 and 50,000 calories of fat stores on their body, as well as the glycogen stores through the process called gluconeogenesis. So you'd have both that you'd be able to use. And I guess what I'm saying is that people think that the calories that we need from nutrition, that we need all the calories from nutrition. But the fact is there is another form of calories that we have inside of our own bodies. And is what you always refer to as becoming a fat burning machine. So would you like to talk a little bit more about how we're able to tap into the actual fat stores that we have on our own body, as opposed to nutritional, calories that we could consume?
Sure. So it was actually worked out 150 years ago in a treatise, in a little booklet in England called the Banting diet, that if he didn't eat the carbohydrates, the bread, the pasta, the rice, the sugar, he lost weight. So he wrote about it, didn't know why that happened. But so when you think about it, we really consume food and then burn the food. And you have to think about what the source is of what you're eating or drinking. So and separate out, if it's sugar, we don't store sugar. So you have to burn it, or you store it as glycogen, a very small amount, as you mentioned. But if you want to burn your body fat, these enzymes, or the process of burning the body fat, is different than the process of burning sugar. So every time you eat or drink sugar, you have to burn the sugar, and you can't burn your body fat. And this defies the belief for a lot of people that just having a little bit of sugary drinks actually can turn off your fat burning for a long time, way beyond just when you consume it. So when you get the sugar out of the food, and that means starches as well, because starches get digested to sugar, your body is now faced with making energy from the protein and fat on the body, or from what you eat, not sugar. So the body kind of figures out, and it has to do with the glucose not going up, the insulin not going up, that you have all of this body fat energy already there, like your onboard pantry, your battery pack. So your body figures out pretty quickly, within a day or two, when you don't eat sugar and starch, don't eat or drink it, your body fat starts to get mobilized and the hunger goes away because you're already eating from your body fat, not from the food on your plate. It's actually, it's amazing that it happens so fast, that cravings go away, and this is how the caloric intake, the energy intake, goes down. It's because you're burning the body fat off your body first.
Right.
So there's less of a need, so yeah, the mindset of many people is, I need to come in, eat 3 meals a day with 2 snacks. And in fact, the diabetes teaching, mainstream teaching, urges people to eat 3 meals a day with 2 snacks so they don't have a low blood sugar from the medicine that they take. So I have to explain in that case that I know I'm going against what your other doctors have told you, but we're trying to fix your diabetes. I don't want you to manage your diabetes. I don't want you to have diabetes. But so getting to access to your body fat store is remarkably fast, but you have to be very strict to stay away from the sugar and starch. That's why we use a 20-gram total carb method for everyone at first. And then, as you mentioned, even people who look skinny, look lean, they don't look fat or obese, athletes have a tremendous amount of energy already on their body stored as fat. And so if you can get access to that, so I do have to explain that to those who exercise, because in that world, exercise world, they've been teaching carb loading, especially for marathons, and Prof. Noakes, Professor Timothy Noakes in Cape Town, who wrote the book on running a marathon, The Lore of Running, ripped out his chapter on running and carb loading, and says I was wrong, and you should actually go into exercise burning fat and not carbs. So there are these particular instances where traditionally we've taught eating carbs, but that turns off your body's fat burning. And if I want you to become a fat burning machine, well, and you want to too, if you're trying to lose your body fat weight, then you just have to be very strict to not eat or drink anything that raises the blood sugar, which means you're going to have to burn the blood sugar. And it's actually pretty simple when you look at it in that way of your fuel source. Are you a fat burner, sugar burner, and realize that you burn what you eat?
It's a crazy notion, and it was one that just fascinated me and got me really hooked into this type of lifestyle. But something that's that I can point out is that there are races that can last, ultra endurance marathons that can last 8 to 10 hours, and it's incredible. These guys defies all logic. They're able to complete these marathons with water alone. And for carb burners, this is absolutely an impossibility. You see that carb burners are having to, pop the gels and eat the sugars and eat the fruit and eat along the way every 45 minutes to try to top up those glycogen levels, because once you run out of the glycogen levels, they call it bonking. You actually can't come back from it. Whereas a fat burner, I think that 40,000 calories, I think it's like 24 hours. You can kind of run for like 24 hours without using any external nutrition whatsoever, just water. But in any case, I found that that was one of the big catalysts for me that got me into this. But let's move into a couple of questions. So, this is the first one is not really a question; it's just more of a statement. It's from Nadine, and she says, "I've tried every diet there is. I found myself starving myself to death, only to fail after a couple of months. I tried Dr. Westman's method about 18 months ago, and have lost close to 80 pounds, and no longer on diabetic medication. This diet is for life. Thank you, Adapt, and thank you, Dr. Westman." So that was from Nadine. Les asks, how many calories should I be aiming for on a low-carb diet? That's not one that you
right. So I guess if calories matter, how many do you have? How many should you have? I find that the calculators that we're using, the traditional teaching, is not right. I mean, it's too many calories. But like an Excel spreadsheet at the end, if you line up all the calories and find the sum total at the bottom, at the end of the day, what you want to monitor is the outcome of the calories you're having. So is the weight going down, or are you maintaining a stable weight? Now, but you know, if someone's doing low carb keto and you're being very careful about not having, you know, over say 50 to 100 grams a day, depending on your metabolic flexibility, it's automatic. I mean, when you're hungry, you'll eat when you're hungry enough. So I don't, and can you imagine that the human body was made to have the exact same amount of calorie energy input every day? I mean, the luxury to be able to do that is phenomenal. I mean, I think we evolutionarily would have times when we would have famine. You wouldn't have a lot to eat, and to have the exact amount every day is kind of a stretch to think that that's the optimal way to do it. So I guess the answer is I don't know. I don't know that anyone knows the amount of calories per day, even though there are lots of calculators. There, you know, you can find the calories per kilogram and, you know, for proteins and all that. These are just estimates. And I think if you are a you know, biohacker, you like to measure all of these different things, you can, and then you just follow what the data show you. Let me put it another way. In our studies that we've done, people range from about 1,200 to 1,500 calories per day as they're losing weight on a low-carb keto diet. It's not the 2,000, 2,500 calories a day you'll see on these printouts. But the bottom line is, what result are you trying to achieve? And unfortunately, some people, if you've had a long time history of weight gain, weight loss, you've been on medicine, you've had surgery, it may be that your metabolic rate is really, really low. And we find out that you really can't consume many calories at all. And I'm assuming, you know, if you're having trouble, these things aren't working as quickly or as well as for the other person, see a physician, a healthcare specialist who understands there may be a low thyroid level, there may be some other metabolic issue going on. While these are uncommon, they do exist, and that's why I have a clinic where, and a lot of other doctors have clinics where you go like a doctor, we do evaluation, we take your history, do blood tests, and then monitor you over time. So that metabolic rate issue, I've had to, you know, be the person to explain that your metabolic rate is just so so low that you can't eat much, you know, even though compared to everyone else, it seems like, you know, but I need more, or, you know, you've been used to having more.
Talking about metabolic rates, Danny asks, will my metabolism suffer if I eat very, very low calories?
Well, the research says that your metabolic rate will slow down if you lose weight, even if you exercise a lot. When you're not exercising, your metabolism will slow down. Well, especially if you're using exercise to lose weight. So the body compensates. You know, think about it. Your brain, your mind might want you to lose your body fat, but your body doesn't want you to lose your body fat. I mean, this is what will keep you alive through a famine if there were no food around. Of course, most of us have never, thankfully, had to go through a famine. So, but your body is going to reduce your ability to get to the fat. So some of these times are called plateaus. They're adjustments where you're not going to be losing weight. And then the metabolic rate slows down so that your basal metabolic rate, so that you're not using up all of this precious fat store that you have to help you survive through the famine. But so the recent research, meaning, you know, the last few years, shows that a low carb diet lowers the metabolic rate less than a low fat, low calorie diet. So again, it's another, you know, check for an advantage of doing it in a low carb, low fat way. It lowers the metabolic rate less. And I know there's this internet and among my patients, this idea that you have to eat more so that you don't go into starvation mode. People tell me that all the time, and I don't know where that comes from. other than maybe a low fat diet that's at a low calorie level, and that's not very practical
Right.
information for my patients. So the way to access your body fat store is by eating less, not more, even if there's a reduction in metabolism. Now, doctors can give you drugs to enhance the metabolism, and I just choose, and most of my patients choose to do it without medications.
This is an absolutely fascinating topic. It was one that was close to me, to be honest with you. So hopefully a lot of people got some value here today. Thank you so much, Dr. Westman. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see future videos, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Adapt Your Life. And if you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, please don't forget to click the notification bell so that you'll be alerted to any future videos that we post, which is every Wednesday. If you enjoyed this video, please would you give it a like and a share. It would mean the world to us. And next week, we will be discussing, is food quality important? So join us next Wednesday for another episode of Conversations with Dr. Westman. And on behalf of Eric and myself, this is us signing off until next week. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.